Trish?
Good morning.
And everybody.
Thank you, Chair. I can confirm the meeting is now live.
Thank you. And good morning, everyone, and welcome to CPED. It's good to see you all here and a little nostalgic seeing some of our counselors who are heading for greener pastures. So let's get started. I'll start with the land acknowledgement. The Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. And we have quorum, so we are good to go. I'll call for the approval of the July 18th, 2024 minute. Thank you, Councillor Outfit and Smith. All in favor? I'll take that as an aye. And any opposed? Nope, we're good. We have our minutes approved. Number 3, the approval of the order of business and approval of additions and deletions. Councillor Blackburn.
Madam Chair, if I could, I'd like to propose that we move item 13.1.1 to the start of the presentation. So we'd be moving 13.1.1 to just before 10.3.1 on the agenda.
All right, is everyone okay with that? Okay, we have a changed order of business. No problem. Do we have any additions and deletions, Mr. Clerk?
Thank you, Chair. There have been no requests for additions or deletions received from the clerk's office.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the order of business as amended?
So moved.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Outfit. Thank you. All in favor? All opposed? And we have an amended order of business. Wonderful. Business arising out of the minutes, we have none. Call for declaration of conflict of interest. We have none that I see. Motions of reconsideration, none. Motions of rescission, none. Consideration of deferred business, none. Notions of notices of tabled matters, none. Correspondence, petitions, and delegations. Mr. Clerk, do we have any correspondence that's been received?
Thank you, Chair. There were several pieces of correspondence submitted for items 10.3.1, 10.3.2, and 13.1.1. Those are mainly the form of handouts. Those have been circulated to all members.
All right, thank you very much. Petitions. Do we have any petitions to be presented?
Thank you, Chair. The clerk's office has received a petition received from Nicole Scott regarding a request to reject a proposed 14-story apartment complex for 117 Kearney Lake Road with approximately 200 signatures.
All right, thank you. Thank you. So we will now proceed with our amended order of business, and we will have 13.1.1, and we'll invite Ross Jefferson, the President and CEO of Discover Halifax, to present this presentation. Welcome, Ross.
Thank you and good morning, everyone. Let me start with my apologies that my camera seems to not be working this morning, but I'm very appreciative of the committee's time this morning. For anyone or those that are viewing online, good morning. My name is Ross Jefferson. I am the President and CEO of Discover Halifax. It's my pleasure to be joining you here today to provide an update on the Halifax Regional Integrated Tourism Master Plan. In 2020, just as the pandemic was getting started, Council adopted the Halifax Integrated Tourism Master Plan, or ITMP, as the definitive plan for the continued and sustainable development of tourism and the tourism industry for HRM. Just to steal a quote from our project manager at the time, Michelle McKenzie, while it was a terrible time to try and launch a strategy, it was a great time to have one. And while the plan was not created with the pandemic in mind, it was certainly helped us with many shovel-ready projects at a time when new funding programs were being announced by all levels of government, and we were able to take great advantage of this unique situation. So today we are submitting the final report outlining the benefits realized from this work, and we are kicking off a project with a significant update to what we're referring to as the ITMP 2030. Next slide, please. As I know this committee is well aware, the tourism industry is a significant contributor to the wealth and well-being of HRM. With over 1.3 billion in spending each year, visitors inject money into our region and support thousands of businesses from large to small. But it is not just about money. If done correctly, tourism can and should enrich the lives of our residents and enhance the social benefits for everyone. We are very proud that the initial plan was developed with a community-first approach. What this means is that we wanted to ensure that we were not just trying to grow for the sake of growth or for the benefit of the industry only. Rather, we wanted to make sure that our growth was sustainable and that it benefited not only visitors and investors in the industry, but also the residents of HRM. The initial plan included extensive consultation with over 32 engagement sessions with our partners, industry, and residents from across all of HRM. The plan was also carefully aligned with HRM's economic development strategy, People, Planet, and Prosperity, adopting the goals from this plan. Our vision is to be widely recognized as people's favorite Canadian city. Like People, Planet, and Prosperity, the ITMP recognizes that real success can only be achieved by all partners in the tourism industry working together, including all levels of government, and along with industry and residents. The initial plan supported a series of initiatives supporting 6 strategic themes. First, attracting the highest yield growth markets. Number 2, building and enhancing our key demand generators. Number 3, making it easy to get here and easy to visit. Number 4, focusing on being vibrant and alive 365. Number 5, developing sustainable tourism. And number 6, establishing and identifying tourism leadership where gaps existed. It is our intention to follow the same format and process as we move forward with the 2030 update. Next slide, please. We are very proud to share with you today that through the collective efforts of many partners, we have advanced over 75% of the initiatives since the initial launch. I think it's also important to note that the tourism industry in HRM has recovered much stronger from the pandemic than most Canadian cities. In fact, today we are 11% higher in rooms sold than we were pre-pandemic, and we stand at an all-time high. We know that the ITMP played a significant part in our recovery and growth. Next slide, please. Some of the more significant projects completed are listed here, and we've enclosed a full report card detailing the progress within this report. This report is now publicly available on our corporate website at discoverhalifaxdmo.com. And I'd like to recognize Council and HRM staff's significant contribution towards this work. Next slide, please. While we have submitted a final report on the plan developed in 2019, in reality, this update work will simply build upon this initial work. This means keeping the guiding principles, key strategic themes, while updating our goals to ensure alignment with People, Planet, and Prosperity. We are, however, incorporating a few changes and additions from lessons learned from the 2019 plan. First, we will be adding regional strategies. During the development of the first plan, we recognized that while the plan was for all of HRM, there are distinct differences in the regions throughout HRM, and it's our intention in this next version to do a much deeper dive and consultation with all of the communities in HRM. Number 2, we'll be doing a deeper technical analysis. So as an example, we will be investing in carrying capacity studies to make sure that we're not experiencing over tourism in our key destinations, and if so, we will be developing strategies to mitigate this. We'll be looking at supply chain bottlenecks. For example, car rental inventory is a bottleneck that we're well aware of. So the technical analysis will allow us to look into specific issues with deeper data and much deeper knowledge. We'll be doing a deeper analysis on sustainability, and we've entered into a new partnership with TELUS Mobility, which significantly enhances our ability to better understand where visitors are originating from and better understand the unique travel patterns across all of HRM. This helps us track across different seasons and trends affecting our industry. And furthermore, this new data will help us with our regional strategies by helping boost our better understanding of the dynamics of the industry at regional and community levels. And finally, we now have dedicated resources to support implementation, thanks to the recent increase in the hotel levy and the addition of key resources in our organization. Next slide, please. After a competitive process, we've selected our preferred partners for this work, Skift Advisory and Upland Planning and Design. Skift Advisory has deep experience leading destinations around the world with development of sustainable tourism master plans, and they have teamed up with Upland Planning and Design based here in Halifax. Upland Planning and Design has a deep understanding of the region and has worked on many adjacent plans supporting our industry. Next slide, please. As we've done in the first version, we'll be undertaking a deep consultation across all of HRM, including both industry residents in our approach. Also working closely with HRM staff, we'll be seeking to return to council to present the plan and seek council's adoption once again. Next slide, please. We know by experience that planning cannot be done in a vacuum. Our process will include alignment of our planning work with existing strategies, both at the HRM level, as well as across provincial and federal levels. We appreciate in advance access to key HRM departments as we complete this work and as we have done in the past. Next slide, please. So you see here, I won't go through this detailed schedule, but we are planning, we've started the work today, officially today, and we'll be wrapping up this work in the second quarter of 2025. I just want to take a moment to also recognize and thank ACOA as a major contributor. They're funding this strategy to an amount of 50%, and the balance of the funding coming through our organization, which of course is funded through the hotel tax and contributions from our members as well as HRM. Next and final slide, please. We have a number of communications to be released here shortly on how the public and industry can get engaged, so please stay tuned. We have set up a hotline and distribution list at the following address. And if anyone is interested in getting on, please just email us and we'll make sure you're included in the communications. Again, I want to thank council members of this committee and residents for their continued support in this project. And thank you for your time today. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Well, thank you very much, Ross. That was a great presentation. Are there any questions of clarification for?
I have a quick one, Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Councillor Ithut.
Hi, Ross. It's Tim Outhit. How are you?
Very well, thank you, Tim.
So two things. I don't think Pam or David are on the call, but boy, if they were, I think they'd be quite excited to hear you talk us a little bit more about focusing going forward on I think you called it regional, but I would assume rural.
Councillor Ithut, sorry to interrupt. Are you able to turn your camera on while you're speaking?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Oh, there you go. Oh, lost you. Okay, if you're not able to, no worries.
Okay, we done now?
You can go right ahead, but there's no camera.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. So Ross, listen, just the rural and regional approach, I was just teasing you saying that David and Pam will be very happy about that. I know it's been near and dear to them. My question for you is, it may be too early, but what are you hearing from the hotels, from visitors, etc., about potential impact? Since you say hotel registrations are up above 11% up above pre-pandemic levels. What are you hearing about the changes in regulations of the short-term rentals, or is it too soon to tell?
Thank you, Councillor Oates. Yes, we do know that the provincial legislation changes is certainly creating a little bit of additional work and some confusion with short-term rentals. We have ongoing meetings. In fact, tomorrow scheduled in cooperation with HRM to help them. I think that many of the challenges that were initially brought forward are being rectified, but I do know and believe that there are existing issues that the industry is reviewing. I really can't speak on their behalf, but I'm happy to say that there is a new association, the Short-Term Rental Association, that has been formed, and it gives us a much better way of communicating with that industry. Until this point, there was no real way to communicate with the industry. It was all independent operators. So I think this is a great step forward, and I think we'll be able to understand some of those nuances here in the coming days and weeks.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Ross, and good luck with the planning and with your future.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Oates, and the same to you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Oates, and go ahead, Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and Ross. So good to see you. Thank you so much for this presentation. Just to sort of follow up on what Tim started with the regional strategy, and I was curious about what efforts you guys were making in working with our diversity and inclusion office on cultural destinations. I know that there's real desire out there for some African Nova Scotian destinations to highlight our rich history in that area. So that was question one. The other one was about you mentioned the rental car, the challenge in getting rental cars these days. Just wondering, is that something that's unique to HRM, or is that something that we're seeing right across the board in Canada? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blackburn, and thank you for your ongoing support as a past member of the board, and I know passionate about this. Two great questions. Yes, we actually have quite extensive consultation planned for a number of industry groups, including the Mi'kmaq community, the African or the Black community, as well as working with the diversity office. So we're excited about that. It is an important part of the work that we're doing, and we've been working as partners with many of those agencies today, and we really appreciate their support as well. On the second question of car rentals, we do track and monitor when we are out of vehicles here in HRM, and we do benchmark and compare across the rest of the country. It is more of an acute problem here in HRM. That is perhaps in part because we actually have recovered, and we probably have stronger growth than many other regions throughout Canada. But it is definitely a barrier right now for increasing growth, particularly in the summer season. So two fantastic questions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Cuttle, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair, and thank you for chairing today's meeting. I'm actually here with Discover Halifax on the strategic board meeting today, and really digging into a lot of the numbers surrounding the health of our tourism industry, and largely like all positive. So I just want to give a shout out to Ross and the team at Discover Halifax for the excellent work they are doing, and in particular their collaborative efforts in working with partners around the region. Tim, to your point about Pam and David, I'd say that I am also very thrilled to see this new integrated tourism master plan coming forward, looking at HRM as a whole. That has been a journey getting there, and in particular, I think the funding from HRM to help support the efforts of Discover Halifax play an important role in that, and really look forward to seeing what the next strategy brings. I just wanted to comment on the points about the car rentals, and as well as kind of the short-term rentals and really looking at what our capacity for growth is right now, given the resources we have available. And, I know we're going to be talking more about that today. And Ross, I don't know if you have any more to add to that right now, but I think this will be an important conversation moving forward over the next few years about, how do we, what are our economic goals with tourism, and how do we continue to support and grow the industry, to the benefit of the local businesses and the local economy. I mean, I don't know if you have any comments to add to that, Ross, but I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cuddle. Yes, through the chair to you. Yes, we definitely do see a number of constraining factors that will be limiting the growth over the next few years. We are very optimistic, though, and we're in a great place. The fundamentals for the growth of the tourism industry are incredibly strong here. People are really interested in visiting Halifax. I think we have a fantastic thing that's going right now. I really do take great pride in the fact that, again, like I've said, we're not interested in growing just for the sake of growth. Our community needs to benefit, and our residents need to see value and benefits in this as well. So if we're growing at a little bit of a slower pace, but at a sustainable pace, and one that's not causing undue harm or pressures in our community, is the path that we want to take. Again, I think we're on very strong footing. We'll have some barriers on the path forward, particularly around supply issues, but they're not insurmountable, and we're excited to put our shoulder into it.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Chair Cuddle. And it's a privilege to be in the chair on your behalf today. And I also just wanted to welcome Deputy Mayor Kathy Daigle-Gammon. I see you popped in, so welcome this morning.
Thank you very much, Madam Vice Chair. Nice to listen to the presentation, Ross. I wanted to come in and hear this as well. Thanks.
We have a motion for this item. Wondering if someone wants to put the motion on the floor. Anyone? Don't all jump in together now.
I can do it. I'm sorry. I thought maybe the chair was going to do it, but if not, I would very pleased to put forward that the motion that the Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee forward the staff report to Regional Council for information. I so move.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Outfit. Wonderful. All in. Oh, go ahead, Chair.
Oh, no, I was just seconding. Thank you, Lisa. I had all my layers of screens here and couldn't find the motion. Thank you.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, wonderful. That report is heading to Regional Council for information. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ross Jefferson, for being here and presenting to us today. Really appreciate it. You have a wonderful rest of your day and your conference that you are holding today.
Thank you very much, and thank you again to this committee and to all of the staff at HRM. We really appreciate the cooperation.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, we got amazing staff here in HRM, that's for sure. So we are going to bump it back to our presentations, and we have item 10.3.1, the Radstorm Community Arts Space Venue Acquisition. And I'm going to invite, is that Captain Larson and Lucas Godey? I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Representatives of Radstorm Community Arts Space to come forward and present. And we have a PowerPoint presentation. And our LA, our clerk here, is going to let you know when you have 30 seconds left and when your time is up. So you have a little timer to help you guide your presentation. So welcome and thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you for having us. I'm Cap Larson and
I'm Lucas Godey.
And we're both members here at Radstorm, which is a art and music collective community space on Gottingen Street. And we are in the midst of a campaign to buy the building that we have been tenants in since 2018. Oh, next slide, please. So the goal of our presentation is to tell you a little bit more about Radstorm, present our plan to buy 2177 Gottingen Street, and discuss potential HRM support of $100,000 towards the purchase. Next slide.
Just to quickly explain about what Radstorm is, we're a community arts and music space. We work with a sort of do-it-yourself and do-it-together approach. All of our programming and our services are pay what you can, and we operate an all ages and dry, so no alcohol or drugs allowed in the space. We run on anti-oppressive principles, we're queer positive, and are almost entirely volunteer run and community funded. Next slide, please. Radstorm consists of a number of sort of sub-collectives. First is the SADRAD Music Collective, which runs an all-ages music venue, a jam space, and a recording space. The Inkstorm Screen Printing Collective that runs a silk screening studio and runs community workshops for silk screening. The Anchor Archive Zine Library, which you can see behind us, which is, I believe, the largest archive of self-published works in Eastern Canada, and Food Against Fascism, which runs community food servings. Next slide, please.
So just a little bit of background. So the Anchor Archive Zine Library started in 2005 and later joined by Inkstorm and then SADRAD. And then these three collectives joined forces to form Radstorm in 2014. We were then evicted from our space on Almond Street to build a condo, and we moved to Gottingen Street in 2018. So we're almost 20 years into this project, and we're hoping that we can buy the building we are now so we don't have to move yet again, and we can exist for 20 years and more beyond. Next slide.
So to take a look at some of our programming in a year, I believe this is for 2023?
Yeah.
So in 2023, we had over 1,000 space bookings for jams, shows, and events. Over 200 unique bands performed in the space. There were 116 live events and workshops. Over 1,200 meals were served at community food servings. There were 52 life drawing classes and more than 52 open hour sessions. Next slide. Here's a quote from Sebastian Labelle, I believe, former director of the Bus Stop Theater. Spaces like Radstorm are essential to sustaining a healthy, exciting, and relevant arts and culture center. Small and affordable venues play a critical role in providing space to explore and take risks, to either start out or to sustain a practice on the margins of the mainstream. They provide the fertile ground out of which sprout new trends and new connections across a wide spectrum of artists and audiences. Next slide.
So there's just a few photos of the space. So next slide is our life drawing classes. Food Against Fascism serves meals, and the People's Fridge is a collective that provides free food. Next slide. Oop, we've lost our slideshow.
Sorry, just a moment. I will set us back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is life drawing. Next slide. This is an art build. So this happens quite often where different groups and individuals come and use the space to create posters and banners and art to support social justice issues that they feel strongly about. So this is, I think, an example of Justice for Africville event. Next slide. So there's many different performers of varying genres that come. This is a touring band. So we have touring bands from all over Canada. Next slide. Here's another quote. This is from Lucas Pierce of the Upstream Music Association. He says, as a financially and socially accessible venue, Radstorm has become a critical part of the Halifax creative arts ecosystem. Next slide. So this is an electronic music event and art hangout. So this is notable because people who enjoy electronic music report that it's really hard to find events to go to that don't have drugs and alcohol in the electronic music scene. So we provide opportunities for events like this. Slide.
Radstorm has helped me practice my craft as a musician in a way that would have been financially inaccessible to me otherwise. I've met many of the most important people in my life through this space, like Cap. Radstorm is, without exaggeration, the only reason I still live in Halifax and I'm able to be a practicing musician here.
Thanks. A few more photos. This is a zine workshop. Next slide. This is a community market book sale and presentation by the Beehive Collective. Next slide. Okay, so I just want to talk a little bit about why we're approaching the HRM for support for this venue. So the HRM recently commissioned a study called Performing and Visual Arts Venues Study. And in it, all ages venues are considered an urgent gap and listed for highest priority for support by the HRM. So if you can look to in the report on page 10, it notes all ages venues is an urgent gap, and Radstorm is the only all ages venue currently available and plays a valuable role in this regard. However, Radstorm is not primarily a music venue and hosts a variety of other events. Stakeholders emphasize that without an all ages venue, it is difficult for young people to develop the habit of attending shows and for young performers to develop their skills. The lack of an all ages venue puts the future of the local music scene at risk. Next slide. So Radstorm is also addressing other urgent needs. For example, the youth project that supports queer youth holds regular meetings and hangouts here. We have a practice space for bands, which is also noted in that report as a high priority gap. We provide silk screening for small businesses. We serve meals on Sundays when no one else serves meals in the neighborhood, as well as host other mask mandatory music nights. So we are offering social options for immunocompromised people to enjoy social and cultural events. Next slide. Here's a picture of us all with the building. Next slide. So a little bit about our governance. We've been a nonprofit society since 2009. We operate with general meetings, several working groups, long-term assignment of tasks. We have a very strong volunteer collective, and new people are constantly joining the collective, and we're skill sharing with them to kind of build the next generation of people stewarding the space. And we also provide employment opportunities for youth through Canada Summer Jobs, as well as a partnership with Nova Scotia Community College. Next slide. So let's walk us through very briefly our expenses. We have about $85,000 a year in expenses. 25% of that go towards artist fees. So that's money that's going back into the artist pockets who are performers and bands and various other events. Our other larger expenses are rent and wages for those youth employment programs. Our revenue mostly comes from grants. We sublease a portion of the building to Eye Level Gallery Society, who rents out artist studios, and then about half of the rest of our revenue comes from shows and people using the space. So we have an average about $5,000 surplus each year. At the moment, we have $20,000 in a GIC that's set aside specifically for the building purchase. We also have, in addition to that, $20,000 surplus in our operating account. We've recently been awarded $50,000 over the next 2 years from Arts Nova Scotia Operating Fund and $5,000 from the HRM Arts Operating Fund. Next slide. So how are we going to buy this building? So we have an incredible opportunity to buy this building at a below market rate of $450,000. It was appraised at $470,000 in 2018, and I'm sure the value has only gone up. But the owners are very supportive and want to see us buy it. They've been approached by developers to buy it tomorrow at a much higher price, and they are waiting for us to have our financing ready to buy it. So we're raising $50,000 through a combination of $50,000 from individual donors. We've raised $23,000 so far. $100,000 from government sources, so this is what we're requesting from the HRM, and $350,000 from community bonds, which I'll tell you about in a moment. And we have raised $100,000 so far, and more than $100,000 more is committed. Next slide. So community bonds are a social finance tool where individuals can buy bonds, which are small loans that have a small interest rate, and allows supporters to lend funds to the organization through asset-backed investment. Next slide.
There are 30 seconds remaining.
Okay, great. Next slide. So we're partnered with Tapestry Community Capital in order to do this, and they have worked with numerous organizations to raise over 100 million from thousands of investors, and they'll be administrating the bonds. Next slide. So how we're going to pay for it, basically our financial models created with Tapestry show that by setting aside the same amount we pay in rent, we'll be able to have a sustainable community bonds program. Next slide. We also have opportunities for increased revenue. Next slide. Opportunities for decreased expenses, including applying to the City of Halifax for a reduction in property taxes once we own the building. Next slide. And our project timeline is that we hope to purchase the building in early 2025. Next slide. So RadStorm is important for many different reasons that we touched on: shared community resources, engaged youth, employment opportunities, space to create, member-led organization, opportunities for artists and musicians. It's been one of the most important spaces in my life. I have learned so many skills. I've met so many people. I don't know if I would be in the same place in my life as I am now without this organization. And I'm 40 now. I started when I was 20, and now seeing other youth join the space who were my age when I started, and the opportunities and the networks that are opening up for them is very inspiring. And so that's why we want to make sure that we own a building, we can stay, and we're not going to get priced out of the real estate market. And next slide, and thank you. So yes, our request is for $100,000. So we're hoping that you would make a recommendation to the wider council to support this request. We were speaking with Lindsay Quarry of the Arts and Culture and Communities Department, and she suggested that this committee would be the best next step to present to get our proposal in front of council.
Thank you. Thank you, Cap and Lucas, for that great presentation. Do we have any questions of clarification from the committee? I think Chair Cuddle, go ahead. Oh, you're muted.
You're mute.
Yeah, I love that. Are we on questions of clarification or just questions for the presenters? I just wanted to first of all say to RadStorm, what an excellent presentation.
Well, thank you.
You know, I was writing down questions, and as I wrote down the questions, the next slide would pop up, and there would be my answer to the question. So, you know, really, really well done. I'm familiar with your organization from my work and time in the North End, and you know, I actually have kids who go and hang out at RadStorm, and I know what an important asset it is to all of Halifax to have those underage inclusive safe spaces to go to. You know, yeah, most of my questions were around your revenue models and you know, other sources of funding. You mentioned, you know, I think you covered most of that. I'm just wondering, you're asking HRM for 100,000. Are you going after any other large capital grants from government to support your efforts?
Well, we talked to the provincial department, and they were more interested in providing funding for operating or for renovations once we do own the building. They don't have a stream where they can support capital purchases. So we did apply for the Arts Nova Scotia operating funds and were awarded $25,000 per year for the next 2 years, and then we can continue to reapply. And so that's a great contribution to our finances to be able to cover utilities and repairs and staff and all sorts of things like that, but they're not able to provide capital or to provide funds toward the capital purchase. We've also developed a draft of a grant to go into the Canada Cultural Spaces Fund, and they do sometimes fund capital purchases, although they're very oversubscribed, especially for urban centers. So they were honest with us that we should put in an application, but that we shouldn't bank on it. And they also require that 70% of the funding be in place before we even apply. So we're getting there through our community bonds program, but I think having some HRM support before we apply to them will bolster our application greatly.
And is there any timeline risk on this, just in terms of the purchase?
Well, the building owners are very supportive and they want to see us buy the building, so they're not going to go ahead and sell it from under us, but they have let us know that they would like to sell it within the next year.
All right, thank you. I'm going to let my other colleagues ask questions, but I'd be very supportive of requesting a staff report to look at a contribution from HRM.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Cuddle. And I think Councillor Smith had his hand up next, and then Councillor Blackburn. So go ahead, Councillor Smith.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair, and thank you both for your presentation. As Councillor Cuddle said, it was a great presentation and pretty concise, and also great to see many faces of very familiar people in your presentation as well. So that's always exciting. For me, the two questions was, and you mentioned it a second ago, just in terms of how long the owners will give you. So more specifically, are they giving you a year from now, a year from, kind of just giving an idea of what a year means? Like, are they going to say a year starts on X day?
Right.
And the other question is, what has been some of the uptick or interest in the bonds? Because that's kind of an exciting model I've seen used in other places, and it's great to see someone here use that model. And the last one is it just the building that fronts the cottagen? It doesn't include the back part?
Okay, I'll try to answer those questions in order. So the first one was around the timeline. So the year started when we launched this public campaign, which was in July. So it would be 1 year, so July of 2025. But they've also been quite generous and have let us know that, you know, that's their ideal timeline. If it takes a few more months, they're not going to kick us out, but they need to sell the building for their own personal reasons. So it just can't drag on forever. But I think that them seeing that we're making a lot of progress is very positive, and they actually are interested themselves to be bondholders in order to help us buy the building. So there's no risk in my mind that they're just going to kick us out, but if we were to do nothing, eventually they would say, okay, that's enough. But they see that we're working on this, and I believe that we'll be able to have the funds to buy the building by July of 2025, especially with a contribution from the HRM. And then what was your second question? The other one was about the building.
The bonds, like, has there been interest?
The bonds, yes. There's been a lot of interest. So we're trying to raise $350,000. We've been on sale for 7 weeks and we've raised $100,000 so far. And we also have 100,000 more people who have signed up to buy bonds, but they just haven't entered their bank account information. So we have 100,000 more people that we're following up with. So I believe that we'll be able to sell those bonds. And it's a real mix of people, former members, parents of people that come and use the space, just kind of supportive community members, the building owners, you know, like it's a really nice mix of people who are contributing to the bond campaign. And it's been really great to work with Tapestry. We got a grant from the Nova Scotia Community Foundation, and we were able to hire Tapestry to help us create our business plan, which was distributed prior to this meeting, as well as investor consultations and presentations and financial models. So we have all of that documentation, and we've been doing investor presentations. We just had an open house and a presentation yesterday where a lot of new people came into the space and were really interested. So I think the bonds model will be a really positive one, especially because that means that we won't have to get a commercial mortgage. Commercial mortgages the interest rates are very, very high right now. Plus, we'd have to get mortgage insurance and all kinds of things like that. And if we use the bonds in place of the insurance or in place of the mortgage, instead of paying a mortgage every month, we're paying our bondholders interest and saving for the principal every month. And the bonds program will take about as long as a 20 to 25-year mortgage would take.
Thank you. Awesome.
Yeah, it's a really great program, and it's really inspiring to see how well it's worked in other places. Sketch, which is a very similar organization in Toronto, raised $3 million this way, as well as many other organizations. So it's been great to work with Tapestry and have that guidance and that confidence from them.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go to Councillor Blackburn. She also has a question as well. Go ahead, Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you very much. Not so much of a question, but thank you for this incredible presentation. As others have said, that was very well done, very well presented. But I also want to say thank you to the building owner. Because,
yes,
wow,
I agree. Yeah.
Wow, it's not too often that a building owner will take these lengths to help support a nonprofit group like this. So really appreciate that. Listen, I'm not, familiar with this particular arts venue, but certainly I recognize and have seen firsthand the value of these spaces. It was an all ages art space that allowed my mother-in-law to pursue her sculpture work in Edmonton, and she went on to create sculptures that now sit on Parliament Hill. My daughter's partner was able to access these open and reasonably priced art spaces in Prince Edward Island when he was a young guitarist starting out, and now he's a traveling guitarist with David Miles. So you can go far when you tap into these spaces. So certainly I will support any motion coming forward that would take this to regional council for the next step. Just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blackburn. And I see Chair Cuddle has her hand up again. Go ahead.
I was trying to text Councillor Smith, being the area councillor. I don't know if he wants to do this, but I'd be happy to put a motion on the floor that CPED ask for a staff report on making a contribution of $100,000 towards Radstorm for the purchase of their building.
Get our clerk maybe to weigh in there, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Chair. I believe myself and Maggie McNaughton were just discussing possible motion form. We can certainly include in a recommendation a particular dollar figure and be considered. I'm hearing actually that that form of the motion looks good from the clerk's office perspective. Yeah.
Are we able to see that in the chat?
Yeah, just a moment. Let me see if I can just take a step back and grab some more detail.
Sure.
And Councillor Cuddle, if you have that written down, you don't mind just sending me a quick email, that'll maybe be faster.
I don't, but you know what? I just found the chat. Sorry, the chat had my screen split here and couldn't find it. Here, let's just type it down.
And while you guys are working on that, I'll just follow up with Lindell Smith's last question, which was the size of the building. So it's a multi-story building. It's about just under 400 square feet, and it goes all the way back. There's a back deck, but behind the space is the tiny lab. So it doesn't cover like the entire lot all the way to Maitland. It's about halfway. But it has a full main floor, full basement, and then a space upstairs, full upstairs space and a loft. And the upstairs space and the loft is where Eye Level Gallery has their artist studios. And then the main space is where we do our events and have lots of resources. And then the basement, we have the recording studio and the rehearsal room.
Thank you. That's awesome. And I see that Councillor Cuttle has put that in the chat. So is that okay, Mr. Clerk? The wording?
Yep, I see no concerns with that.
All right. Do we have a seconder for that one?
I'll second.
Councillor Smith seconded. Okay. Any questions on the main motion? Oh, Councillor, Deputy Mayor Daigle Gammon, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, for the opportunity to be able to make a comment. I'm just wondering if within that staff report you want to also add in at the same time to look at a tax reduction. So if it's included in the report, then you've got the funding, but you've also got the requirement to be considered in the nonprofit tax program, property tax program.
All right, I see Maggie
Thank you.
McDonald has taken herself off mute. Go ahead.
I don't know if we would be able to address both at the same time in terms of actually making the determination, since I believe there's a separate process around the tax piece. We can address that will be part of sort of subsequent work. I think my memory, and I know it's a little dangerous to go from memory on some of these things, but my memory is that they would have to own the building first and then make application to the tax program. So we can certainly address that part of it in the staff report, sort of like what the process is from there. But we'll, and you know, if we can do both, we could. But I suspect it'll be more information in the first staff report, and then there might be a subsequent process from there.
All right, thank you. Do you have a follow-up, Deputy Mayor?
I do, thank you. Yes, I did understand. I do understand that it has to be owned first, but I guess just making sure that that comment is within the report is really important so that it doesn't get lost in the follow through. But thank you very much, Maggie. Appreciate it, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see any other hands up for this motion, so I
Just
guess
to confirm the direction there, you know, we can include just some wording within the motion itself, and we could consider that if that was a friendly amendment, we could consider it that way, or as an alternative option, we can just capture some of that wording as part of the meeting minutes. That would be part of, you know, attached context of the staff report. Or of the recommendation anyways that would be forwarding, putting into report center. If folks are comfortable with either option, I just want to raise that.
go ahead, Chair. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's fine to just make it note of it, because at this point, the 100,000 is only a contribution, which doesn't guarantee the purchase of the building. And so I do think it is a separate process, but I think in the notes when taking the presentation that was given and looking at potential revenue streams and cost savings that were identified, that they would be noting that they will be applying for the tax, the not-for-profit tax program as part of their overall financial plan.
Excellent. Thank you, Council.
All right, sounds good. Sounds like we have a plan. And I see no further questions or concerns. Oh, yes,
well, I have a quick question. So thank you so much for putting forward that motion. If it passes and there's a report to council, will we have an opportunity to present to the full council with that report?
Simon?
I believe that would have to be a separate presentation request at that time. Okay. What we would be doing at this point is just making the recommendation to staff.
Okay, great. Well, we'll keep in touch about that.
Thank you. Okay, so now I will call for the question. All in,
Question?
all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, none opposed, so that passes. Congratulations. On to the next step. Wish you all the best in your
Thank you so
endeavors.
much.
Thank you for that presentation.
Yeah.
All right, folks, we are moving right along and we are going to presentation 10.3.2, increasing access to affordable housing in rural communities. And we have Lori Cook, a PhD candidate for educational studies, to come forward and present. Good morning, Lori.
Hi,
Welcome.
thank you
Welcome.
very much.
So you will have your time and our clerk will signify when you have 30 seconds remaining. So
Sure,
you have the heads up. Go ahead.
no problem. So what I'm looking to do today is to share with you some highlights from some research that the fairly new Housing Innovation Cooperative has done in a study. The goal of this presentation is to share a little bit about increasing access to affordable housing in rural HRM using accessory dwelling units or backyard suites. Maybe we can just go to the next slide. So the Housing Innovation Cooperative is a nonprofit cooperative focused on identifying gaps in the housing sector and providing affordable housing, and then working to address those gaps by doing research and education. So we recently finished a study on the role of education in using ADUs, accessory dwelling units, in increasing access to affordable housing in rural HRM. And this study was funded by the Nova Scotia Community Housing Growth Fund under the Department of Municipal Affairs and Housing in partnership with the Canadian Housing Transformation Centre. Next slide, please. So some of the key findings of the report, basically our hypothesis that education is critical to increase the use of ADUs was confirmed. And I did provide a copy of the report when I sent this presentation in. So I'm hoping that you all should have a copy of that report or will receive one. And if you have any questions outside of this presentation, feel free to reach out as well if you haven't had a chance to digest that yet. So we did confirm through a variety of research methods that education is critical. Property owners, an unexpected finding that we did not expect to find, is that property owners are also, though, very afraid of the commitment and the risks involved with ADUs. And to address this, we feel education is required as well, but also that an intermediary like an ADU-based housing co-op may also be useful in helping to address some of these concerns and risks. And then the last thing I wanted to sort of highlight in terms of key findings, and this is something that we're continuing to do some learning around and research around, is ADU policies and programs needing to be in better alignment. So we did a preliminary review of HRM and provincial policies and programs designed to enhance the use of ADUs, and found many of these policy programs are not well aligned or informed by an HRM-specific rural housing needs assessment. So next slide, please. So moving on from some of those key findings, we're going to be talking about some recommendations. The key one is that times have changed and are changing. It's great to see from the presentation earlier related to tourism that there is an interest and desire to do regional planning related to tourism. One of the things we would recommend checking out, maybe as part of that process, is a development in Australia called Witchcliff Eco Village. And there's a link to a YouTube video about it at the bottom there. But basically the idea is that in the past, concentration of growth in the core made sense to limit expenses for services such as sewer, water, roads, etc. This restriction on rural growth, though, no longer makes sense post-pandemic. And Witchcliff is a great example of looking at community development in a very holistic way that looks at economic development, employment opportunities, business development, as well as housing, the environment, and population growth. And they actually specifically picked a small rural community in an area that has high tourism growth and potential to add to that community and become part of that community. So it's a very holistic approach to growth and development in a very responsible, sustainable way within a rural context. Next slide, please. So basically, some of the restrictions on rural HRM, we believe, are out of whack based on the research we've done. So we know the recommendation in the regional plan review is to reduce growth targets from 25% to 10%. We know different people have different opinions on council about this. We have found that the idea of reducing the growth targets for rural areas would send a significant message to staff and to other stakeholders, such as CMHC, that basically HRM only really cares about urban and suburban growth. Growth is still being concentrated currently in urban and suburban communities and has been for years. Technology post-pandemic does now allow for remote work and less commuting for work, so that should be less of an issue. And rural HRM is recognized as an important asset to attracting people and businesses to HRM. Next slide, please. So just to continue on some of these restrictions that we reviewed, rural HRM has 8 regional growth centers identified under the regional plan, 4 main ones and 4 smaller ones. But growth in these areas is still being limited despite the need for and desire for growth in these areas. And I will admit, my perspective is, as someone coming from living in Musquodoboit Harbor and having been here for about 30 years, I was involved in leading the 2006 community visioning process, and I was involved in the 2014 community development plan. And both those plans and visions called for policies then to support an increase in the variety of housing to enable older adults, seniors to age in place, as well as to retain and attract younger people in the area. So this has been, at least in Musquodoboit Harbor, this has been an aspiration for a long time to increase the variety of housing and thereby increase the affordability of housing in this area. Next slide, please. So some of our key recommendations include there really needs to be a specifically rural HRM housing needs assessment done to enable the development of appropriate goals, policies, and programs, and the evaluation of progress towards these goals. So it's great there is the accessory dwelling unit backyard suite programs. There are some gaps in communication related to those programs and how people can make use of adding an ADU to their property. And the other thing we have done informally, we've been talking to some nonprofits that serve various populations that are challenged in some way, and asking them if they're noticing that more and more people are moving to rural areas because they have no way to find a place to live in Halifax. And many of them are living in cars, RVs, tents, whatever, in rural areas in less noticeable places than public parks. And this needs to be acknowledged. So as part of a rural HRM housing needs assessment, we would also recommend that in that study, various nonprofits that serve a variety of marginalized, challenged populations are also included in the assessment of what exactly is happening in terms of the dynamics of population movement within HRM related to the need for affordable housing. Next slide, please. So we would also recommend that growth targets for rural HRM should not be reduced, or at least not for regional growth centers, because it sends a message to HRM staff and other stakeholders that HRM only cares about urban, suburban growth. It also ignores the desires expressed in various community consultation exercises, for example, the vision for Musquodoboit Harbor. Also, though, recently, as we were doing some research related to CMHC and what kinds of potential developments could be done in rural areas of HRM, and in particular, we were looking at a potential pilot project in Musquodoboit Harbor, and we were told we would need to have 75 units in the proposal because we are part of an urban community. And it's interesting because there's over 250 definitions that the federal government can use related to defining rural. And CMHC, when we dug a little deeper, we discovered they chose the one they're using, which focuses on urban development, because their understanding is that the priority for HRM is urban development. Next slide, please.
1 minute remaining.
Okay. Key recommendations, in addition to the ones I've already shared, are to consult widely, frequently, and constantly to understand what people of a variety of backgrounds and socioeconomic groups want and need, and review frequently how populations in rural areas of HRM are changing, not just secondary data like StatsCan, which doesn't match community boundaries, but using primary data to assess what's going on. Recognize there are new ways of creating communities that are more holistic, for example, Witchcliff in Australia, and that make the most of new technology, both in terms of the environment, but also in terms of remote work and business development. And support the agency of people across HRM to create healthy communities that do not necessarily need a lot of infrastructure money to create communities focused on well-being for all, including the planet. And an example of that is Musco Rider Transportation Cooperative, based on the Eastern Shore and in the Musquodoboit Valley. That was a community-based initiative that came out of the community visioning process in 2006. And it is uses primarily green electricity and so on, and is a tremendous asset to the community in enabling people with challenges around transportation to be able to get around.
Presentation time is concluded.
Okay, and next slide. Just quickly, there's some next steps for us if you want to just take a look at that. We're looking to build on what we've already done, and we would be very excited to talk to anyone else who would be interested in the work that we're trying to do.
Thank you, Lori. That's a great presentation. And I see we have a hand up, so if anyone else has any questions of clarification, we will start with Chair Cuddle. Go ahead.
Thank you, Vice Chair Purdy. Lori, thank you so much for doing this work and for bringing this presentation forward to CPED. I really appreciate the time you took to speak with counselors in the course of your investigation, doing a deep dive looking at affordable housing, and how you've connected that to, really a need to rethink how we think of our rural areas in HRM. I mean, the challenges you talk about, in regards to how CMHC views rural areas like Musquodoboit, are the challenges of being a regional municipality. We're one of the largest regional municipalities in Canada. And, they had the same problem in Sheet Harbor, where they didn't qualify for the rural doctor program because they were part of HRM. And I think, I've been speaking about this quite a bit over the last 4 years, that we need to redefine HRM and the various areas in it, between the urban center, the rural commuter, and then the rural. And that, it can't just be about the urban center. We need to figure out how we grow all areas of our municipality in a sustainable way that leads to, as you spoke so well about well-being and providing people with choice and opportunity. I had a great presentation out in Sambro by Karen Foster. I don't know if you know Karen Foster about rural transit, right? And we're doing this work with the GRTA about how do we create a sustainable transportation network throughout the region. We are growing, we're growing rapidly, and we need to start thinking differently. And I don't know exactly where next to take this presentation, but I think what I am going to do is if I could get your presentation, I think there's a copy of it in our notes there, and forward it on to the folks doing the regional plan review, as well as we're going to be starting a rural plan review. And this is like really good information to help inform that process. I'm also very interested in following up around the education piece of the accessory dwelling units and how we can better promote those in rural areas, because having a large rural area myself as part of District 11, I know that I have some people who are gung-ho and ready to go and are kind of hitting roadblocks and not quite knowing how to get over those humps. And then I have others who, to your point, are not sure what that entails. And a lot of people live in rural areas because they want to be kind of have their kind of peace and quiet. And what does it mean when you bring on accessory dwelling units with renters that you have to manage and all those other parts? So I think you have some excellent ideas here, some excellent information, and I'll connect offline about how we connect you with the other folks doing work in our rural areas. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair Cuddle. Yeah, thank you, Lori. Okay, I don't see any other comments or questions. So thank you again, Lori. That was a great presentation. Thanks for coming to do that. And we are going to move on to our public participation. Do we have any speakers for public participation, Mr. Clerk?
Thank you, Chair. Where this is a virtual meeting, presenters for public participation would have had to register by the end of business day yesterday. I can confirm as of this time there are no registered speakers for today's meeting.
All right, thank you. So we will move on then to item 13.1.2, the framework for major events. And I don't think we have a presentation for this, but we do have staff here. Billy Comer, manager. Hello, Billy. So would someone like to put the motion on the floor? Don't everyone jump at the chance.
I have to get through all my screens again.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Clerk. We have it right there in the chat, folks.
Okay, I'd be happy to put that on the table. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I'm used to working with two screens, and right now I've got this like one little laptop screen, so it's just like wading through. I move that the Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee recommend that Halifax Regional Council request the CAO work with Discover Halifax to develop a major event policy framework.
And
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Blackburn. Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions on this one?
No questions, but just want to say that, Discover Halifax is, I assume they're talking about some of this right now while I'm in the meeting, but, that they have a very solid strategic plan and how they're looking at bringing in more events to the city, and I think that only makes sense that that we approve this and move forward with it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I don't see any other questions or comments on this one. Oh, Councillor Blackburn?
Nope. Nope.
Okay, so I guess I'll call for the question.
Question?
Question, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All, okay, we have, that motion has passed. Thank you, Billy, for coming and being available. And that is moving forward. So we will move forward as well to item number 14, no motions, no in-camera items, no added items, notices of motion. And the date of our next meeting is October 10th. Is that still on, Mr. Clerk, October 10th?
Thank you, Chair. The meeting time is still available. We will consult as at the time of agenda review if there are a sufficient number of items that we might want to continue to hold that meeting.
Okay, wonderful. And that will also be virtual. And then I guess we will call for the adjournment, and it is 11:19 a.m. and we are adjourned. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you all.
Have a wonderful day, and thanks for coming.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks
you.
all. Take care, everybody. Thank you, Simon.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks all.